Alright, I'm going to do a 1-year review of my 1987 Chevy Cavalier CS. So after this past weekend, so this is October 7th, trying to get over chest cold. Oh, it's been brutal. So I bought the car October 3rd of 2021. Bought it with just about 12,000, or actually 112,000 miles. It's currently sitting just under, or roughly under, 120,000 miles at this point. And I kind of want to do a review while I still have the light. And as you can tell, it's turning fall in Wisconsin, so we got some nice scenery with this car. So I'm gonna just talk about at least what I've done to it in the past year. And, you know, going with inside or interior, exterior, and anything mechanical, maintenance and reliability. Well, since we're looking at the car, let's talk about the exterior aspects of it, what I've done to it. And really, I actually haven't done a whole lot much to the car on an outward appearance. Well, obviously the biggest one is the new 185/80 R13 tires with white wall included. These are the Maxxis tire. Let's see. Can we get a brand? Yeah, Maxxis MA1. And I got some really kind of cheap calipers that came with the car and kind of tarnished the white wall. It will clean up a little bit, but it's not like old school white wall tires where they'll clean up like brand new. These take some cleaning up, and they're not too pretty. But you know, the tires were $117 a piece. Got them mounted at Mr. P's Tires for $120 to do all four. And honestly, the old 175/70 R13s were just too small. The engine, the poor four-cylinder, was just barely keeping up with traffic, screaming and such like that. It just wasn't very happy with these tires. So I decided to get one size that would replicate 195/70 R13s, which were the F41 specific tires. Once you got F41 sports suspension, you got those tires as a standard with the three options of black wall, white wall, and white lettered tires. This car came from the factory with white lettered tires, but unfortunately, these are the only 13-inch tires as far as the automotive game for passenger cars. You don't have any other options left. You want to keep your 70s or 80s car looking pretty stock with whatever wheel covers you have on it. Unfortunately, you get one choice. And honestly, they ride incredibly well. Quite a good quality tire. They have deep treads, so they'll last a long time. You don't have to worry about burning through these unless you have a lead foot. They actually have some deep treads, so they'll last a long time. So you get your money's worth out of it. And if you garage your car, you could stretch your tires for 10 years. So, and of course, while we're talking about tires, I got the factory wheel cover baskets. They had those really ugly Walmart chromey 13s on it, and they didn't look good, but I figured, hey, they cover the hubs for the time being, so I left them on until I order a set online. Car would have came equipped with them, so on they go. So tires. Well, I decided to paint the bow tie. The actual clear plastic bit of the emblem came off. It was actually barely hanging on by the adhesive backing by the time I got home, so I ripped it out. And these actual clear pieces are hard to come by. I've only seen a few in a junkyard, and I hoard them whenever I can. And turn out to be even more messed up than mine, so, you know, kind of screwed with these, but then again, 40-year-old cars. So I ended up just taking some modeling paint with some metallic fleck to it. I literally cleaned out the whole backing till it's clear. Then I just painted them. And I put about 4 layers of paint, at least as best I can. It is really hard to get a lot of the original foil that would have came with this badge. It'd be a lot more shiny. But this subdued metallic gold is actually a really nice look too. Then I took some Gorilla Glue and I just stuck it on there, and it'll never come off. I replaced the low beams because the ones that came on the car were pretty tired. They were also kind of garbage. So I ended up getting some Wagners. Yes, I could put LEDs. No, I don't like the look of LEDs, or at least most LED conversions. I don't know, it's not my style. And people say, well, they work so much better. All depends on how adjusted your headlights are. You could have LEDs and be aimed for shit, and you still can't see shit. So really, all depends on how balanced, or not balanced, but how aimed your beams are. Really determines what you can see. So halogen, tungsten, or LED, or xenon. Really, take your pick. They'll all work just the same. As long as they're adjusted properly, they'll all work fine. Let's see. Didn't do much else. I haven't touched the body of the car like I thought I would. I mean, there's actually a few spots. That's not bad. It's just a lot of small stuff. It's a lot of small body work, which I eventually get. My intention is to bring this car around to factory shape, because this thing is a survivor. But there's so much paint work to be done on it that the upper needs to get repainted because it's faded so much that it's not the original shade anymore. The side, I definitely want to actually save on and just want to lightly touch up. Some parts are just going to have to get repainted, but that's okay. I intend on doing that anyway. I was hoping to do that this summer, but I had daily driver car problem for about 5 weeks, and I had to hold that off to deal with that headache. So the exterior work of the car didn't get touched at all this year as I would like to have, but next year is fine by me. That's all right. Again, just small amounts here, small amounts there. Actually, that one door actuator. Again, it's just small details that would probably annoy a lot of people, but to me, I'm a patient person. I just put up with it, with some small details, but yeah, that's actually the worst of it. And that panel's still solid. It's just, that's the actual real rot of the whole car. And that's not bad. And I doubt it even hardly changed in size. Beyond that, exterior of the car is about the same, except pinstriping has seen better days. It's starting to come off. Next year, once I do much of the paint work as best as I can, I'm going to get the pinstriping done the factory way. I'm going to keep the red stripe because it's a nice contrasting color. It's just preferences. So that being the outside of the car, at least what we can see. Oh, we had this door open for a moment. There's not much on the inside that I have done, except for 2 small details. One, the front driver's seat buckles were missing their covers. So I ended up just going to yards and pulling as many of these brown covers off. They are not identical to rosewood. This is rosewood interior color. This is just standard GM brown. I thought GM just used rosewood as a fancy way of saying brown, but in reality, it is nowhere close. me see if I can show it against the dashboard, because the dashboard's a perfect example of the difference between rosewood and brown, and this was eye-opening because I thought they would match, and it turns out they technically don't. So this is a one-off color, and I'm very certain very few Cavaliers of this 1 year only color has ever been equipped with this color interior. And having it both medium rosewood on top of dark rosewood with a rosewood interior is the ultimate brown. More like plum. It's more like a plum brown. So I added covers to both the fronts. The rear still has its original rosewood cover, but I tell people not to touch it because it's the only intact, unbroken one I still have left, and I'd rather keep it that way. Until I find a rosewood interior I can cannibalize, I'm just going to stick with just those simple parts. I also got the original radio put back in at some point this past year. Friend of mine, Bruiser, helped rebuild the radio for me, and it works great. I like it. AM, FM, tape, all that good stuff. And I play tapes, so fun. It's an 80s car. You may as well enjoy it, be a part of the time, because CD players don't do it for me. And aftermarket radio units don't do it for me either. So people tell me, upgrade, and I just kind of tell them, no. So let's go to the back of the car, because there's very few things I've done to the back of the car. Shocks. I replaced the rear shocks in the car. They're actually pretty easy to do. Shocks and the upper bushing mounts. Oh, can I? Oh yeah, right there, if you can see. Yeah, the ones that came off the car were original. I had thought at some point maybe someone would have replaced them, but no. Actually, a lot on this car is actually original, including the muffler, which has a few pinholes, but I intend to just put a light tack weld on it just to kind of keep it happy and such. But yeah, I have an original muffler, an original GM factory muffler on a 37 GM year-old car, which would have rotted a long time ago, but it's there. So besides shocks, I put a new fuel filter in the back. The one on the car, I think, was at least 15 years old, maybe 18. So relatively newer, but didn't need to be there anymore, and kind of figured it was not a bad idea to replace. And they're cheap, and it's easy to do. It's never given me issues, and my car's always started up and drove fine with it on, so it's doing its job. I can't complain too much. Car's clean as always. I mean, ever since I brought it to Wisconsin, it has started to surface rust just only slightly, but a little bit of some steel wool or some light sandpaper and a bit of body color paint will fix that up, no problem. I'm not too concerned, and that's only if I have time to get this detailed, but, I mean, when do you see a Cavalier that is this clean? Like, that's just scale. It's not flake rust, it's just scale. I mean, hell, even the muffler's original, the original heat shield on it, so, and even the original type of hanger, so, I mean, cars are survivors, so, take a look at it from underneath. So, that's the back of the car. Oh. May as well just take a quick look underneath the front, because there's only so little from above can you see below. But yesterday I gave it an oil change, and more on that later, because I had some problems with this engine for a time, and I'm hoping to maybe prove a theory out. And I replaced both front sway bar and links because they were both shattered. So, replaced them both, tightened them. Car handles incredibly flat. Just absolutely mint. Mint of a car. You can see my laminate sheets spot welded together. Like, you can see my spot welds. I don't think you'll find a cleaner Cavalier than this one. And ladies and gentlemen of the internet, I am sorry to say this car is not ever going to be for sale. As much as people have been up my ass about this car, about wanting to sell it to them, I found a real gem that had been for sale for some time, and no one gave two craps about it. All of a sudden, I buy it, and then everyone's up my ass for it. I'm sorry, early bird gets the worm, and this bird's not giving up its worm. Not anytime soon, and not likely within your lifetime. So, sorry, but this is my nostalgic 80s car. I grew up with 5 Cavaliers. This is number 6 in the family. Knew hundreds of people in the 90s, 2000s who've either owned, rented, borrowed a Cavalier of some age, period, model. But yeah, these cars mean a lot to me, and I wanted to find a really nice one to keep forever, and this is mine. Definitely wanted to find something nice, but I was not expecting to find something this nice. And same Acura person from yesterday is also wondering why I am videotaping my car for the same time twice in the same week, because the first video kind of turned out kind of meh. So, losing daylight a little bit, so I'm going to keep this a little bit quick. So, the cruise control didn't work. So, I've had a lot of friends suggest that it was the turn signal stock being the culprit. And I decided to be a rebel and decided to replace the vacuum servo bell, this guy right here. And actually turned out it was this guy right here. The original was just slightly bigger. This one came off of a 91 Grand Am. It works the same way, bolts in the same way, just slightly smaller, and it works. So, cool. I just had to... I bought it for $10, and hey, that's easier than snaking a wire down the column. Which, you know, a new stock would be nice, but I don't want to think about that. That's just far too much work. Let's see. Obviously, when you get a new car, I decided to, you know, change the airbox filter, you know, spark plugs and spark plug wires, which I don't know how old the ones were on the car before, but cylinder 1 decided to fray itself and became a 3-cylinder for just a short bit, and ended up driving my way back home on 4 cylinders. So, you know, roommate saves the day. That's fantastic. So I owe him sushi now, but he don't mind. Let's see. So, you know, the cylinder head's been rebuilt. It's got a new head gasket. It's been decked. Runs really strong. Really, really strong engine. It's got a brand new 85 amp alternator. These do exist for 1 year. 87 just happens to be the only year where they offered... did they offer? No, they had 74, 85, and 105. And 105 was V6 equipment only. And 74 was standard for the LL8. And the optional heavy duty was the 85 amp. Some people think it's a farce. It is what it is. I'm not going to argue with GM information, because otherwise they're just screwing their salespeople, their service teams and such like that. And this is still a good time for GM. If you think about it, this still was a good time for GM. This car still exists. A lot of their products today won't. So with the alternator being replaced, because the other one just stopped working. I drove the car home on 8 volts. I don't know how I managed to do that. Parked it in the garage, turned it off, cranked it over, dead. Just didn't do anything. So I'm going to rebuild the old one this winter just to have some fun. It's got a new belt, got a new belt tensioner, and a water pump. And these belt tensioners, there are actually 2 types. The first type is for LL8 cars. They're shorter, not this length, but short as in the amount of space that they give the power steering pump reservoir and the pump itself. It's more closer to the engine. Starting in 1990 and onward, this became slightly longer, so it got extended out this way, and the power steering pump got moved about like 3-4 inches. And apparently, hearing friends, it being all the way back is more pain in the ass, which I actually had no problems removing this when I had to do a whole bunch of stuff. So, I mean, yeah, it's a tight fit, but all my bolts went in just fine. Except it swallowed a 10mm wrench, which might actually still be in there. All I know is that there's still a 10mm wrench caught somewhere, and it's just vibing with the car. And the car didn't combust into flames yet. So, yeah, it's got new belt drive, like, accessories at this point, or at least what I can replace. Let's see. So, when I replaced the water pump, I noticed one of the bypasses from the water pump housing to engine sidewall jacket was really baked. Like, it was just cracking when I squeezed it. So I put a new hose there. So, cool. Nice. I have one less thing to do, because then I had to remove the alternator to get down to it. I could still do it if I didn't do it, but I said, well, my philosophy is to do a job once. Do it good, don't have to do it again. And if you find stuff along the way, just replace it, and then put it back together, and you got no problems. And that philosophy has never failed me. Some people just replace a component at a time, and they let the rest of it fail. I don't have that kind of time anymore. So, I'd just rather replace what I can around a specific area and just kind of go along. And once again, my friend Bruiser helped recharge my AC system with R12. Put in a new AC dryer, an orifice tube, and a bunch of other O-rings just scattered around. I forget exactly which ones, but he touched everything, and it works. Blows very cold AC. Just within about 15 seconds, it's like, boom, frigid. It's quite nice. Needs the little plastic cap for here. I got a few now. I've been lazy. But eventually I will replace this. Just to stand by. Talked about AC. Coolant system. So, it's got a new 180-degree thermostat. It was a 195, but since this is Wisconsin, especially an older car, would rather have it open up a lot more sooner. It's never being driven in the winter, so I don't have a need for it to stay closed for longer. And if you own an older car from the 60s and prior, keeping your machine cool is almost a vital thing, and you would be better off just keeping it as cool as you can. Someone might be watching. I'll let them watch. Put in a gasket, because apparently when I took the old one out, there was no gasket actually sealing the thing. It's perfectly flat, but that's silly. Just put a gasket. Doesn't cost much money. Okay, the big beans. I put in a fully aluminum radiator, because when I bought the car, it was failing in several places. And it did keep some pressure, but not very long, but it didn't overboil at any time. It just, slightly boiled it out, peed a little bit of coolant at a car show and had to go to a gas station to fill it up. But it's got a brand new Weiland fully aluminum radiator, about $220 if you have a J car. Would highly recommend it. It's fully aluminum. Will likely outlast the rest of the car, or probably last the life of the car too. Better cooling, never gets hot anymore. It's got a new cap. This thing didn't seal so well, so I put a pipe clamp on that. Yeah, it works. I'm not complaining too much. Lower rad hose, upper rad hose, brand new, because the ones on the car were dated from 1987, so I'm not trusting 37-year-old rubber to do a job anymore, so I'm not risking, don't want to risk anything. Let's see, actually there is something underneath that I did do that should be probably shown as well. The car came with the TCC solenoid plug unplugged the entire 6-hour ride home, which screamed at 80 miles an hour with no torque converter engagement, but I still got 32 mpg out of it, so wild. So I replaced an original torque converter solenoid. Never been done before me. And that is pretty neat. Replaced the gasket, cleaned it up real well, doesn't leak. Also, too, the transmission coolant lines, those are new. Although the upper one, the upper hex joiner nut thingamajig up onto the radiator, somehow that's not fully seating, and it's letting a little bit out, but not enough to where it actually matters that it leaks. It's just, it kind of dribbles down, and it just kind of sits there, and then it just kind of eventually just evens out, and then it starts all over again. I might just inspect it, or I might just buy another one. They're not expensive, and it's very easy to do, and maybe next year, but doesn't do anything, doesn't hurt anything. So I did that first, and then I decided to drop the pan to change the transmission fluid, because that was already burnt by the time I bought the car, and this thing shifts so smoothly. Put in a brand new filter, put in a brand new gasket, and that thing is absolutely bone dry. Doesn't leak anything really, except for one spot, and I'm believing that it may have actually stopped it. So let's talk about the engine oil. So I've been convinced by some friends and one relatively well-known YouTuber, Vice Grip Garage. The guy, the dude, and he likes to put 15W40 into old cars, for probably the higher oil pressures, so that no operating surface is never left uncoated, but for the high properties of zinc, which the high pressure thing, sure, whatever, but the protective elements of the zinc, that interests me. So I figure, you know what, why not? I'll add it in, I'll put 2 oil changes through it, and kind of go from there. Ever since I had converted it to diesel weight oil, the car started acting a little bit funny. Its performance went down, its fuel economy slugged, it was getting 23 on the highway, regardless, couldn't change it. Idled incredibly rough, like a tractor. And even with the AC running full blast, this thing stalled on me once. And it was not even the torque converter clutch while getting off a highway. No, it just stalled on me once, and it never happened again, but it does stumble from time to time when I have this oil in. So I decided to take the car to a friend in southern Indiana to take a look at one issue that I had with the car, which had this loosening tilt assembly, to which then he told me he's never really seen anything like it before, but if it doesn't actually do anything, not to actually worry too much about it until it does do something. So I've decided, I'm going to leave it alone. If it's not hurting me now, I'm just going to let it be until it falls in my lap. So while I was showing him that, then I mentioned him that I was running diesel weight oil and how the rear main seal leaks. On the way back home from Hannibal, Missouri to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the 6 hours, this car drove like a beast. Had no problems getting me anywhere. When I switched to diesel weight oil, the extra oil pressure was squirting diesel weight oil out the rear main seal at highway speeds. Wouldn't do it in town. I checked the oil. Doesn't do it in town. Doesn't leak oil. It only squirts it out because I noticed that there's a trail of oil on the transmission pan, which I've cleaned. I made sure it was spotless, and there's a small airflow trail, like a comet tail, streaking behind it, or going to the rear. So I knew, okay, I got a rear main seal issue. Alright, the car sat for a while too, so, okay, that's to be expected. Then my friend told me, well, I don't know if I would have even trusted to put diesel weight oil in this car. And the more I thought about it, he's kind of right. But what's odd is that my other friends, they have Cavaliers of the same vintage. They're also running 15W40 in their cars as well. But they have the old cast iron LQ5 engine. So the same lower, just cast iron upper and a different valve cover and really just different everything. The upper end on these cars are not interchangeable. In fact, the cylinder head bolt patterns are not even the same. So really this is two different beasts of the same genealogy or same genus, just related but different. So they've never had any issues with their cars running diesel weight oil, and I've had nothing but to complain about this engine with diesel weight oil. Then yesterday, I decided to pretty much put money where my mouth is about this complaint. Finally changed the oil. It was due for an oil change anyway. The car behaves so much more differently. I feel like I have gained back the 10 horsepower that I thought I have lost. The response is amazing. Even with the AC running, because I made sure that, because with the AC running on the old diesel weight, this thing was a slug. This thing is as fast with or without the AC on initial acceleration. That's fantastic. You'd think there'd be a little bit of a difference between the two running and not running. No, this car is about the same in performance. It's happier. It idles incredibly smoothly. It doesn't clatter. It doesn't chug. It doesn't rattle like a tractor engine. It runs like a modern engine. Like, this is considered a modern engine to GM at this point. Using aluminum head. They haven't done that at that point. They've used aluminum blocks on the Vega, but that's a different story. So I changed it to conventional oil again. I'm back to 5W30, and you know what? This car is behaving positively to a point where all my complaints have been resolved. Now, my main question is, which I'll do before the snow comes, I want to do a highway economy run with this car to see if the same trip of 23 mpg will get me similar or better performance as far as fuel economy. If I can touch 28, nice. If I can touch the mythical 30 or 32 that I experienced on my trip up north, doing a railing 80 miles an hour, pegging, well, not really pegging it on the floor. It had more beans. It's just mechanically, 85 is the most this car will actually do, and at 90 by accident, the thing screamed at me. So really, the fastest you could go with this car is 85. 90 is possible. Just your car's crying at you. So with that, I'm pretty happy with the immediate results, because I had thought maybe the fuel injector was maybe getting a little filthy, perhaps, or maybe it was the fuel pump in the tank that possibly could be aging. It's 37 years old, as far as I know. The tank's never been dropped. So, you know, anything is possible. But I thought, let's change the oil and see possibly if that might be the issue. Because otherwise, this car runs like a top. It doesn't give me any issues. It hardly ever throws a check engine light at all. So there's not much I can complain about this car now. It's just, I'm hoping the fuel economy improves. I'm not expecting modern fuel economy out of this car. I'm expecting modest of its time fuel economy. I'm expecting 28 on the highway. I'm not expecting more than that, but 28 would be acceptable, not 23. It's a lot more thirstier than I thought it was. And I don't know why, but the engine is tight. Like, this thing is an incredibly tight tolerance engine. Like, it's actually not the original block. It's at 80,000 miles. And it is an LL8, and it is from 87. So they even got the right year. It's got these silly Torx heads for the valve covers, which they went to hex bolts in 88, so they figured these would be a pain in the ass, which I think this guy's going to be a pain to take out. All the others are actually okay. It's just one of them's just slightly out of round, so that one's going to give me a little bit of trouble, but I might get it out. I do have a clip for this, actually. I just haven't had the time, but I may as well do it before the year ends, just to say I got that taken care of. This is my 1 year in review of my Cavalier. Let me see if I can use my head as a... Oh, come on. Oop, there we... Oop, I'm on. Oop, I'm on. I'm on, dude. There we go. Let's see. Oh, sideways. Actually, for how dark it is, it's actually quite light. In fact, moon. That might be a picture. Exterior-wise, some little bit of some light body work, some light paint work. Redoing the pinstriping. What I'd like to actually do is to find new headlight door covers, or just the headlight trim doors, because of course they're warped. This one's warped on the bottom. This one's warping on top. This one's starting to discolor a little bit, and you can see just slightly cracking up there. It ain't too bad, but it is showing a little bit of age, and yeah, it can handle plenty more shows. But it would be nice to get a nice set. I can get left ones all day. I can't get right for some reason. I can still find right, and they're somehow more expensive. But I may have to bite the bullet and just grab a pair. Or maybe grab a few left while I'm at it, just to kind of be sure. This is what they'll eventually do. Of course, you can tell, not by me, because I only hand tighten any interior or body panel, like dress moldings. I only hand tighten, because if you tighten with a screwdriver handle bit thing, you will get radial cracking, kind of like what you see here with the chrome. Once that cracks, you're given the opportunity for moisture to collect between the chrome plastic plating and the plastic base. And eventually they'll just start to lift off. Which is why you don't want to ever tighten these guys. They're on there, they're not going anywhere. That's what's going to happen. And this actually got worse recently. It used to not be like that. It used to be fully chrome plated. Now it's actually flaking off. That side's not so bad. It's just, it's getting a little aged. Yeah, this... I mean, this could be GM quality, but the brand new ones will actually fit form better. And I'm a perfectionist, so I do enjoy a car that looks great. So, and then of course adding the fender trim, which I have a few, so I'll put that on next year when it's warmer. I refuse to do body work in the cold. It's not great for paint work, not great for quality of work. I've done this before. I know a thing or two. So, in Wisconsin, if you have an old car, you just kind of put it away, wait for warmer weather, and then it comes out again. And more and more exterior work will happen then. So, again, this is my one-year review of my 1987 Chevy Cavalier CS sedan. You know, there are still many of them like it out there, but it's... I mean, there might be a few nicer ones than this, but that's... With how few of these are still around, and how many people still believe these things are growing on trees, and they'll buy them, drive them into the ground, and then go buy another one. I get shit for saving this car because it's so nice. I save it because it is so nice. Why destroy it while you're at... Why destroy a car when you're already on top and you can only go from there? It's so much easier to save on a car at this level of preservation than you were to, let's say, do body work. Not to say you couldn't do it. It's a lot of work. Trust me, I've been there before. But people give me shit for this car. People give me shit for running original 13-inch wheels. People give me shit for the aftermarket radio. And you know what? It's my car. You do what you want with your car. I do what I want with mine. And I'm going to enjoy this car for as long as I live. For as long as there's gasoline, I will keep driving this car, along with the Skylark. And honestly, this may be one of the more happier cars I've ever actually driven. Like, this car is fun to drive. And I highly recommend, if you enjoy if you enjoy driving old cars and you want something fun, something so alien that you don't think would be fun to drive, find yourself an 80s Cavalier. Or even any second gen, but any first gen Cavalier you'll have a lot of fun with. And if you find one with the the F41 Sports suspension package and all the other little bits to it, it's a fun driving car. And there's a doggo that's coming to visit me. So anyway, thanks for listening on to my review. Hey there, buddy. Aw, you're so cute.